Welcome back to the video, and in today's video we got ranking every former WWE person now in AEW and what their potential is in the company. Now obviously a lot of these people have spent quite a bit of time now in AEW, so I think kind of give a fair ranking, or just, you know, kind of talk about how they've been so far in AEW. And yeah, it should be kind of fun. Obviously there's quite a few people, however I think a lot of cases for some of the people, they kind of reimagine their career in a good way. So yeah, pretty excited.
Yeah, for sure. But starting things off hot, we have the current women's world champion. That's Toni Storm. So obviously she will be going into that world champion tier. She's had amazing matches with so many people on the AEW roster, most famously being Mariah May, of course. But yeah, amazing talent.
Yeah, she's somebody who was probably never going to win a world champion in WWE. Maybe she would have had one or two reigns, but now is like one of the top women in not only AEW but in just pro wrestling in general. So I'm so happy for her, obviously, because she is such a great talent. But the next up, following similar situation, that is Swerve Strickland, a former world champion, just fought for a potential world champion at Dynasty. Unfortunately came up short, but for him, obviously, has to go world champion as well, against somebody who did a full 180 from what they looked like in WWE to now in AEW.
Yeah, obviously another one of his famous matches is going to be every Hangman Adam Page match that he's had. So shout out to Swerve, he's huge.
Yeah. And then next up we have our Unk stage, and we have Chris Jericho. Now for this one, he obviously isn't going to be a world champion anymore, and really he's not probably in the main event. He might still be that mid-card champion, but overall I think obviously the more recent times his AEW reign hasn't been great, but overall I think it still has been good enough to not fully hate the AEW tenure.
Yeah, as of, the last few weeks, I haven't minded Chris Jericho a whole lot, but, the months before that, as from the start of the learning tree to about, 2 months ago, I was really kind of fed up with him at some point, but I'm kind of coming back around to him. So yeah, I think mid-card champion, because, you can always win a TNT champion or something like that, so, yeah, I'll throw him in there.
And then next up, continue with the Unks, we got Adam Copeland Cope. Again, he's somebody who probably won't win the world champion. I kind of did have a feeling that he would win the world champion these past few weeks, but after things have kind of unfolded, looks like he won't be doing that anytime soon, at least. Maybe still is the main eventer. I mean, obviously he is main eventing shows and PLE or pay-per-views. So what do you think, though?
Yeah, I think main eventer is fine for him. He obviously just main evented a PLE recently and main evented a Dynamite recently, so I think that is fine for him. You could go world champion, and I wouldn't be too mad, but I think main eventer is perfect.
Then next up we have MVP Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. We're going to do all three of them together because they've pretty much only been together so far in their AEW run. I've honestly really enjoyed all three of them, especially Shelton. I think he's kind of, it feels like in WWE he's maybe been like held back or something like that, but now he kind of, even at the age he is still a top performer, and is just still so great. Bobby Lashley as well, obviously, and MVP on the mic, I think has been one of the best features of AEW.
Yeah, recently MVP's work with MJF has been great. There's a lot of potential in the future for him to go against even other people, such as even Dustin Rhodes. He's somebody who's known to cut a really good promo, get him involved with the Hurt Syndicate in some kind of way. Maybe bring Sammy Guevara along with him. They could challenge for the AEW tag titles with them. But I think that would be cool, seeing the promos back and forth between Dusty Rhodes and the MVP, people who have known each other for a really long time, stuff like that. So I think all of them. It's hard to kind of say, obviously, because I could see Bobby Lashley being a world champion at some point. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily Shelton, and obviously MVP isn't going to win any champions, more than likely. So, yeah, I think for me, though, if we had to rank them together, I would say main eventer.
Yeah, I can definitely see in this group having a Death Riders like run, obviously not to the extent of what the Death Riders have been the past few months, weeks, but and hopefully in a positive way where they are just good television, kind of how they were in WWE with the Hurt Business. And yeah, I think the potential is there for all three of them, and yeah, looking forward towards the future. But now Mercedes Moné, again, this is probably another world champion one. AEW run hasn't been, I would say, the best. Obviously, there has been a few hiccups here and there, but overall, I do still think it has been pretty good at the very least.
Yeah, we had amazing Chris Statlander matches with her, a great Harley Cameron match. And yeah, she's just been doing really good stuff all around the board. So yeah, world champion for sure. She's gonna get there eventually, maybe even at this year's All In. And the same goes for the next person because he's the current world champion, and that's Jon Moxley. Whether you like him or you don't like him, he is your world champion. He is that good in the ring to deserve a world champion, but you know, maybe the run just isn't as interesting as we wanted it to be.
Yeah, Jon Moxley is kind of like an interesting case because, like you said, you either love him or you hate him. Right now, it's definitely 50-50 as well. But I think, again, overall, the AEW run has been great. He is still a draw, whether people like that or not. That is still a fact for AEW. And yeah, I mean, he's still great overall. So, yeah, I think he has to be a world champion. But next up, his stablemates, Claudio. Probably not in the main eventer category. Obviously, he is with the Death Riders, but as a single star, kind of hard to put him there. So I'll probably put him in mid-card champion because I could see him being a future mid-card champion.
Yeah, either mid-card champion or just mid-card in general for Claudio would be fine with me. I think even Claudio being in mid-card would be fine just because I do give Pac a little more credibility as far as winning a mid-card world champion because he's a little more interesting in the ring and fits a lot more people's styles in AEW. So I would probably put Claudio mid-card and then Pac in mid-card champion.
All right, yeah, I could kind of agree with that. Yeah. But yeah, Pac as well has been great as well. I think, again, just his matches have been so much better with the talent he's able to work with. So yeah. The next up, we have Athena. Now, obviously, she hasn't really done too much work in AEW itself, but has been killing it in Ring of Honor, and is the longest reigning Ring of Honor Women's World Champion as well. So, for her, I do think she is a future World Champion. She is still fairly young, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, she's still got a lot of years left. And yeah, she's obviously going to have this big feud with Mercedes Moné, it's looking to be. So that should be really good for her to hopefully propel her and bring her up to this AEW main roster kind of call up. And yeah.
Yeah, I admittedly am not a Ring of Honor watcher. I don't watch any Ring of Honor at all. I've seen a few matches from Athena there, but most of my knowledge of her is going to be as Ember Moon in the WWE. However, I am aware that she is that good. However, I am aware that she will be a world champion, even with all that being said. So, world champions here for Athena. Let's do it.
And then next up, Adam Cole. Now, as of late, he is now a mid-card champion with the TNT champion, beating the Garcia Dynasty. 2 years ago, at All In, you could have said world champion, and I wouldn't be surprised, I wouldn't be mad or anything like that. Now, it's a little bit harder to put him there just because of everything that's happened. The momentum of Adam Cole has kind of fell flat a little bit, but hopefully with this TNT run, maybe restarts that, and maybe this time next year we're back in the situation where, hey, he can be a world champion again.
Yeah, I agree. He could still main event any show. Realistically, like you say, he is the champion. Any champion can main event a PLE as long as the world champion isn't involved on that PLE. But yeah, Adam Cole, he's somebody who's super over. People do love him. His in-ring hasn't really lived up to his past matches, but he is still Adam Cole. I do still like him, and I think main eventer for me. Not quite a world champion, but he could get up to that world champion tier.
Yeah, and then next up, again, to some stablemates, we have Kyle O'Reilly up first, though. For him, it's a little bit interesting. They have used him quite a bit, especially with the conglomeration with Orange Cassidy and Mark Briscoe. So he is kind of like a main staple of just AEW TV is there quite a bit. And I've enjoyed a lot of it. But for him, I would probably put him in mid-card champion, just because I feel like he never will have that. They'll never give him that opportunity to be a main eventer or even a world champion.
Yeah, I think the same goes for him and Roddy. Both stablemates will probably go in that mid-card champion range. We already seen Roddy with that mid-card champion. It was Ospreay that took it off of him, if I am not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's a great wrestler. He does everything great. Honestly, his promos are good. His in-ring's good. He does everything great, and I would hope to see him in the main eventer space at some point. But unfortunately, with the way AEW's roster currently is, it's so stacked, just like everyone would say about the WWE's roster at this point. They're just as even. So, it's unfortunate for people like him who kind of fall a little bit short.
Yeah. And then next up, an interesting case of how his AEW run has been, but we have Keith Lee up next. Now, obviously, he's been, we don't really know the exact details of what's happened, whether he's injured or whether there's some type of sick or something like that that's going on. But I think if we're going based on potential of what is still to be, I'm thinking the best for him, obviously. I would still put him in a mid-card champion, potentially a main eventer. He was a tag team champion with Swerve Strickland. We've seen where Swerve went to. I don't think it's very unlikely for him to reach the same heights as Swerve, so I wouldn't mind putting him in the main eventer or mid-card champion, really.
Yeah, I'll say mid-card champion for me. I don't ever see him getting up to the main eventer / world champion tier. Unfortunately, since I've started watching AEW the past 2-3 years, I've seen maybe one Keith Lee match in those 2 or 3 years, whether that be his fault, AEW's fault, or just health and injuries. Just unfortunate with the way things have treated him since, coming to AEW outside of just wrestling.
Yeah. But then next up, we have FTR. Now, they have obviously been amazing ever since joining AEW, and have completely went from a great tag team in WWE to one of the best tag teams of this generation and of all time. So, for me, obviously, I think main eventer's fair, because I don't know if you can necessarily put them a world champion, but as a tag team, they're world tag team champions, so, and multiple times over as well.
Yeah, I think main eventer is perfectly fine. They've main evented with the Young Bucks before, and they probably will main event in the future versus Edge and Christian at some point if you're keeping up with the AEW story. They're in a really good story right now that has a very good potential, and I really want to see the best out of FTR, and I think they can do that with Adam Copeland.
No. And then next up, we have Ricochet. Now, Ricochet, at the very start of his run, I think a lot of people were kind of quick to say, oh, this isn't going well, this is already bad for him, and then after the things he said on Twitter, people always have their opinions really early on. But since then, has been absolutely amazing. I've loved everything about him, from his character work, his heel turn, everything has been great from him. Now, World Champion's a little bit hard, obviously, because I don't know if they would give him that World Champion, but I could definitely see him being a main eventer. He's wrestling with people like Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay. He's already did stuff with Swerve as well, so he is messing with the world champions, but I don't unfortunately think he'll be a actual world champion.
Yeah, I 100% agree with main eventer. He arguably should have main evented their previous PLE with Kenny Omega and Speedball Mike Bailey.
And then next up, we have Buddy Matthews. His run has been pretty solid as well as a part of House of Black. And yeah, I think he could probably be a mid-card champion, especially what they do with this, him and Brody King and the Hounds of Hell. I think that could be really interesting. But yeah, I'd probably say mid-card champion.
Same with me as well. Not going to argue.
Then next up, Christian Cage.
Honestly, right in that same tier as mid-card champion. I don't see him getting back up to that world champion tier. I think he could have at different points in his AEW career. However, I do think that world champion tier may have passed him.
Yes. What about main eventer?
Yeah, it could main event because, like I mentioned with FTR, they could literally main event versus Edge and Christian at some point. So, yeah, I wouldn't argue with main eventer.
And just as well with him is that last year with the heel stuff, he was amazing. He was a top guy who was getting featured a lot, so I could see that happening again for him.
Just hide your dads.
And then next up, we have Samoa Joe. He's kind of been taking time off and on. He's filming movies with Twisted Metal, and I think he's doing some voice acting work. But he's somebody who was a world champion. Probably won't win it again, but I think that is what it is. I don't think a lot of people would be mad about that, but I could see him being a future mid-card champion down the line to like restart the championships, reign to give it more feeling towards it.
Yeah, I completely agree. He recently did a Chris Van Vliet interview where he mentioned he doesn't have a whole lot longer left. So, he wants to wrestle the people that he just specifically wants to wrestle, leading up to his final days here. So, yeah, I think mid-card champion would be where he would want, because I don't think he would even want the world champion again, being where he's at in his career.
Yeah. And then next up, we have Johnny TV, who was a Rampage wrestler, but is now a Collision wrestler. And most of the time, I think he's doing dark matches on AEW live events. So, I think, unfortunately, he has to fall into the garbage minutes category.
Yeah, I think for these next 3 people, they will all go into the garbage minutes. There's not much to speak about any 3 of these people. Billy Gunn, most known for squashing Jay White. Jeff Jarrett, most known for losing against MJF. And Johnny TV, most known for losing against MXM. So, these guys aren't doing too much, and I don't expect them to do too much. They are right where they should be, basically.
Yeah. However, with these two, they can also be from garbage minutes instantly up to main eventer tier as well. If they feel like it. So, yeah. But next up, Dustin Rhodes. Has had a great AEW run so far. But what do you think?
I think mid-card for him. I don't necessarily see him winning a mid-card champion. He has won the Ring of Honor tag team champions and things of that nature. However, I don't see him kind of transitioning that success over to the actual AEW roster.
And then next up, Ruby Soho. Again, kind of similar to Keith Lee in a way where she has been kind of stop and start. Obviously, she got pregnant and had to deal with that, obviously. So she hasn't had too much time, but before there, I think she was kind of ramping up to be a mid-card champion, potential TBS champion. And I still think that's potential to happen down the line.
I personally don't really see that for her, unfortunately. I think the women's roster has gotten a lot more stacked since she's become part of this AEW roster, and I think the line to get to that World Championship match is pretty long now, and unfortunately she is towards the back of that line. So for me, I would say mid-card myself.
Yeah, I could see that because, like you said, it is kind of hard to win those mid-card champions when the division is pretty stacked in a way.
Especially when there's only one women's match on a AEW Dynamite particularly, and then on pay-per-views there might be 2, 3 at most. So, it's kind of hard given those odds of winning a title,
And then next up, Big Bill, who is our last AEW person. So, for him, probably mid-card as well, just because he could be a mid-card champion once he splits from Jericho and the learning tree and stuff like that. I could see him have that potential run. However, I also think age isn't on his side either. He isn't obviously very old, but he isn't very young either. So, yeah, I'd probably put him in the mid-card spot.
Yeah, I think mid-card champion is definitely possible because that is the direction that they want to go with him. The whole point of him being with Chris Jericho is to kind of get that rub, get that little bit of exposure, a little bit more TV time, and that's supposed to kind of elevate him to that mid-card champion, if not even main eventer / world champion. But, I don't think that's going to be the case, unfortunately, for Big Bill.
No. But yeah, that is our list of potential factors for what everybody could see in their AEW tenure. But yeah, I think overall, one thing I am kind of noticing about a lot of these people is that a lot of them have re-envisioned themselves, and I don't think the first thing you think about when a lot of these guys is, the WWE guy. Obviously, the older people like your Edges and your Jerichos, you're always going to think of WWE. But the guys like Swerve and Tony Storm, I don't think in a few years people are going to be like, oh yeah, that's the WWE guy or the, WWE girl. Now it's going to be the AEW guy, the AEW girl. So really glad that people in AEW are kind of getting these same opportunities and able to show off their skills. And that's what's great about having, second promotion.
Yeah, for sure. But we appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.